Have you ever had this feeling that something isn't quite right? You can't put your finger on it and you don't know why, but something just feels off to you. On the other hand, have you ever had this feeling that something is right and you just want to follow that nudge, but there isn't a concrete reason or any logical reason why something feels right or why something feels wrong? Well, that's your intuition talking to you. And today's video is all about following your intuition. Hey guys, it's Francisca and welcome to today's video. This is the first video in a three-part series on following your intuition. Today we're going to get into what it looks like when you follow your intuition and what it looks like when you don't follow your intuition. I'm also going to share some tips that you can use to strengthen your intuitive muscle, as well as some journal prompts that'll help you flex that intuitive muscle. And I'm also going to get into some personal stories on what it looks like when you follow your intuition and what it looks like when you don't follow your intuition. And I'm laughing because one of them is kind of embarrassing and kind of personal, but I think it's important to share because I know that for me, I'm hard-headed and I'm stubborn, and sometimes the only way to learn is by making mistakes. So that's why I think it's important to share that kind of embarrassing and very personal story on what it looks like when you don't follow your intuition. So if you want to take a deeper dive into following your intuition, you'll want to come back next week because I'm going to share some tarot spreads that you can use to help you kind of flex that intuitive muscle. And then on the third video, I'll be sharing a meditation to help you tap into your intuitive strengths. And then on the last Tuesday of the month, on August 31st, you can join me for a live group breathwork session where we'll be doing some conscious connected breathing and also some oracle readings and some movement to kind of help you tap into that intuitive flow in your body. So we all have intuition. Some of us are a little bit more connected to it and have kind of used our intuitive muscle a bit more than others, and so we have a stronger connection with our intuition. And some of us don't, and some of us are like, well, I don't even want to follow my intuition because I need to look at all the logical details and find out why this is happening. You know, intuition is just a feeling, and you know, sometimes feelings don't work. And that's true to some point, because following your intuition is all about trial and error, and really the errors are the way that we learn how to follow our intuition. So there might be like a situation that you can think back to that maybe something didn't feel right about, you know, dating somebody, or something didn't feel quite right about taking a job, but everything looked good on paper. So you went ahead and made the choice to listen to the logical part of yourself. And then maybe a month or 2 months or a few weeks down the line, you found out why something just didn't feel right for you. Well, that was your intuition speaking to you. On a personal level, that happened with me. When I started going to therapy after an abusive relationship, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to be in abusive relationships, and I need to figure this codependent shit out. I need to figure out this abusive pattern. So I went to go see a therapist, and the day that I went to go see this person, like everything looked right on paper, but the day I go to see this person, I just stood at the door and I'm like, this isn't right. Something doesn't feel right. And I logicked it away thinking, oh, this is just your fear talking. But just something didn't sit right. And a few months later, I found out why that was not the right choice for me. This person really crossed therapeutic professional boundaries all the way, and there was a lot of heartache that came from that abusive therapeutic relationship. But the point here is not to bring up old stuff, but to just kind of show you that standing at a door and looking at it and having this feeling like something isn't right here, and knowing that there wasn't a logical reason, was my intuition speaking to me. It was telling me, hey, this isn't right. Don't open that door. Don't, talk to this therapist, But I didn't know that. And the reason that I didn't know that is because I wasn't listening to my intuition. I didn't know how to trust it then. This was years and years ago. I now know how to listen to my intuition. And it's really taken me in some amazing places that I would have never experienced had I not followed my intuition. So here's a couple of examples of what it looks like when you do follow your intuition. So I was driving home from Georgia, and I live in Texas, and I was about an hour and a half away from home, and all of a sudden I start hearing this thumping sound, this ka-clunk, 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 and my car starts shaking, and like the wheel feels like it's gonna fall off, and the tire feels like it's gonna fall off, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And my first logical reaction was pull over to the side. But I'm on this bridge and it's over a river, and I was just like, something doesn't feel right about pulling over to the side. Like, I don't know, but I don't think that I should. So I just kept driving. I listened to my intuition, and I get off the bridge, and then I pull into a gas station. I call my brother-in-law, I call my nephew, and both of them are like, yeah, it sounds like a tire rod. You're going to have to get that changed out, and you're going to have to go to like an O'Reilly's auto parts store or some kind of auto parts store and have them see if they can change out that rod and that bolt for you. And I was like, okay. So then I drive out of the gas station, and I was like, this car is not going to make it. So I go into the next gas station, and I pull all the way up to the entrance of the gas station store. And I'm just sitting there, and I was just like, oh, okay, this just feels right. Just sit here for a bit and then just feel into what you need to do next. So I'm not kidding you, but 2 seconds later, a tow truck driver with a tow truck bed drives up next to me. And so I was like, hey, what are you doing here? He's like, what are you doing here? And I was like, are you here to save me? And he says, not really. I was just coming here because I needed to talk to this gas station guy because, I talk to him all the time. So I started this conversation with him. And turns out that this guy doesn't normally drive to Houston. He usually is just a local tow truck driver, but he was going to go to Houston to get a shawarma sandwich. So he ends up taking me home and, obviously like towing my car home. And on the way, we start talking about all of these amazing things. He starts telling me that he's, wants to leave his girlfriend and that she doesn't cook for him, she doesn't clean for him, and all this other stuff. And I start telling him, for some reason, again, I'm listening to my intuition, about my past abusive relationships and what that looked like. And so we get into this conversation about spirituality. We talk about Israel. He talks about the Quran. I talk about my spiritual journey. I talk about meditation. And all of this because I listen to my intuition. And then when I get out of the car and he's, letting my car off the tow bed, he tells me, I think you're an angel, and I think you were sent here to help me, kind of look at my relationship in a different way. And I wrote all about this in a blog, and so I'll leave that information in the description box below if you want to read more about that story. But again, I followed my intuition there, and this is none of that made logical sense. Like, it didn't make logical sense for me to drive to the gas station. I had already had this information about going, to the auto parts store. But when the tow truck guy got there, he's like, yeah, he goes, I wouldn't let my sister drive her car to the auto parts store, let alone drive to Houston, with her car in this condition. And so, following your intuition can really lead to some amazing places. Like, I didn't know that this guy needed to go to Houston to get a shawarma sandwich, and he was on his way there. I also didn't know that pulling into that exact spot, that he would pull up right next to me. And so, following your intuition can really lead to some amazing places. So another story about following my intuition led me to save somebody's life. I was going to go grocery shopping, and I usually do my grocery shopping over the weekend, but some things had changed and I ended up going grocery shopping at night, which is really unusual for me. And I kind of felt like it was too late. Logically, it didn't make sense because I figured I was going to do my grocery shopping and my mom's grocery shopping. And I figured that going to the store that late, she might not be up and, probably would be a waste of time. And I could easily go do it the next day because I got off early the next day. And just logically, it made sense to do my grocery shopping, earlier in the day and on a different day. But intuitively, it just felt right to go to the grocery store at that time. And all kinds of things kept happening. A little bit of synchronicities, which I'll probably make a video about synchronicities at some other point. But as far as following my intuition, like everything felt right about going to the store at that time. And I didn't know why. There was some things that happened and my groceries wouldn't get separated. Like I had separated them in the cart and the lady didn't separate them out. So I had to go in my car to separate out the groceries. But anyways, when I was doing that, a guy in his 20s approached me. He's like, hey, he goes, do you have a phone? And obviously, like when it's dark at night and you're in the parking lot of a grocery store and nobody's around, it can seem a little weird for somebody to come start asking you for your phone. He's a younger guy, so I didn't, intuitively it felt right to help him. Logically, it didn't feel right to help him. If I was paying attention to the logic, like it's 9 o'clock, here's this guy who looks disheveled and he's asking for a phone, any logical person would be like, no, I'm getting out of here. I'm getting in my car and you cannot borrow my phone. But it turns out that his uncle, he said, was having a stroke, and I'm trained in CPR. So this guy was a little frantic. He looked a little lost, and he was on drugs. And his uncle was having a heroin overdose, which I didn't know at the time. And it didn't really matter because I knew in my heart, I knew in my body, I knew in my soul that I was supposed to help these people. And that was the reason that I went to the grocery store. I followed my intuition and I ended up saving the guy's life. Like I ended up doing CPR on him and called the 911 and had them come down, and they ended up saving this guy's life. I did the first part of it, doing the chest compressions and that kind of stuff and getting him on the ground and out of the truck and everything like that. But following your intuition doesn't always have to be that drastic. Like it doesn't always have to be like saving somebody's life or, getting your car towed, an hour and a half outside of your destination. It also doesn't have to look like, seeing an awful therapist and, having a bad experience there. But what it does look like sometimes is the small stuff. So like maybe you're driving and to work or to some destination. Let's say you're driving to work and you get this feeling like, ooh, maybe I should take the scenic route this morning. It's 5 minutes outside of my destination, but I have enough time to do that and maybe I should do that. But instead you get on the freeway because there's no logical reason for you to take the scenic route, and then you're stuck in an hour's worth of traffic. So it can be small things like that too. Or maybe you feel like I need to turn down this street just 'cause. And then you end up seeing a train on the other side of the tracks and you're like, oh, that's why I turned down that street. Following your intuition isn't about all this big stuff, and it isn't all about the small stuff. It's about everything, the little stuff, the big stuff, and the things in between. So how do you follow your intuition? Well, first you want to start small. You don't want to start with the really big decisions because intuition, at least for me, has never been something that is urgent. It's never been something that is worrisome or fear-based. And I really don't believe that intuition is based in fear, although you can get like a really weird feeling about things. I've never felt fear when it comes to intuition. I've really felt it like, oh, maybe you should do this or not yet, or maybe just wait a bit, is how my intuition speaks to me. But your intuition may speak to you in different ways, which is why listening is really important to help strengthen your intuitive muscle. So ways that you can listen to your intuition or start building a relationship with your intuition and building that intuitive muscle. Some ways that you can do that are meditation. anything that slows you down. Meditation is really great. You can start off with like 5 or 10 minutes a day. Really, it doesn't take a lot. But what you're starting to do is listening to that inner voice, listening to that inner wisdom. And then you can start paying attention to what it feels like when you have a wary thought and what it feels like when you have a download or an insight. So meditation is one way to do that. Conscious connected breathing or any type of breath work is a really great way to do that too. Conscious connected breath work is a really kind of like an active breathing meditation. And what happens is when you breathe in this conscious connected breathing pattern for long enough, your mind kind of takes a backseat and your subconscious opens up. And so you get connected to your intuition that way. And if you want to try breath work, but you're not sure like which breathing style is right for you, then you'll want to take my breathwork archetype quiz that matches your personality with a breathing style that's right for your unique personality. So conscious connected breathing, again, really great way to tap into your intuition. Another way to tap into your intuition is by using tarot cards, or oracle cards. So you might think, well, that's not really, how's that going to help me flex my intuitive muscle? What happens is you can get this external validation from tarot or from oracle cards, just making a reading for yourself and kind of just asking open-ended questions really helps to validate your intuition. So for those of us who need visual proof, tarot is a really great way to do that. Journaling is another really great way to tap into your intuition and to kind of listen to that inner voice. Journaling really helps, especially morning pages for me, helps me kind of get all that gunk out, get all that mental chatter out on the page, so then you can really listen to your intuition and really listen to that voice inside of you. Also making sure that you're staying away from things that numb you. So if you're a highly sensitive person or an empath, then you might feel a lot of extra feelings. So some of us who are highly sensitive or empaths can do a lot of numbing because it just doesn't feel good to feel all these feelings. And I know from personal experience, I've done that in the past. But when you cut out alcohol and drugs, recreational drugs and caffeine, sugar, heavy foods, then that can really help you tap into your intuition, because then you're not numbed by those things. And also overworking, overdoing, overscheduling. Those are also ways of numbing that I've also used in the past and sometimes still use in the current present now. But doing those kinds of things really doesn't leave any space for you to be by yourself with your feelings, with your intuition. Getting out in nature is a great way to ground yourself. And yes, you do want to ground yourself to listen to your intuition. That way you have a basis on what's actually going on in real life. And so you're not going to take these risks that are out of the ordinary. You can really listen to your body and listen to what's going on inside of you. You also want to be flexible when it comes to following your intuition. Being flexible means taking those small chances that aren't life-changing, taking those small steps and just being flexible with your plans a bit when an intuitive hit comes to you. Again, it's going to be this feeling like you're just going to know that it's right. And you can take small steps in doing that and be flexible with that. Also, not having an attachment to the outcome really helps with following your intuition. So at least when you're first starting off, try not to have such an attachment to what might happen if you follow your intuition and what might happen if you don't follow your intuition, because making mistakes is all part of following your intuition. Sometimes the only way we learn is by making mistakes, especially somebody who's stubborn like me. Making mistakes really helps me kind of look and see when something worked and look and see when something didn't work. I found that I learn most when things don't work. Like I said earlier with that therapist years ago, where I stood at the door and I'm like, this just doesn't feel right. Where did I feel it in my body? I felt it in my heart. I felt it in my soul. I felt it in my, well, soul's not part of your body, but anyways, I felt it in my heart. I felt it in my gut. I felt it in my throat. I felt it in my head. I felt it everywhere. Like I felt like a line of like, this does not feel right. So listening to your body, tapping into where in your body do you feel that this doesn't feel right, or where in your body do you feel that this does feel right? Taking note of that, keeping like a journal of like your intuitive hits, and then, you know, maybe going back and looking at the outcome. You don't have to act on any of this stuff, you know, just keeping like a record of it really helps. And then you can go back and look at it and say, oh, this was following my intuition and this wasn't following my intuition. As I said earlier, it feels different for everybody. We all have different stories and different circumstances, and when we followed our intuition and when we didn't. And I want to hear about them. Like, tell me what it looks like when you follow your intuition, and tell me what it looks like when you don't. Because I think when we share our stories, it helps other people kind of pinpoint what following their intuition looks like and what it looks like when you're not following your intuition. So now I'm going to share some journal prompt questions that you can use to flex your intuitive muscle and strengthen that connection with your intuition. So the first journal prompt question is, what does following your intuition feel like in your body? Like, where do you feel it in your body? If you have had moments where you followed your intuition, what did it feel like? You know, did you get like this maybe cold feeling come over you? Did you get like this heavy feeling come over you? Did you get like this light feeling in your heart? Did it feel expansive? Did it feel closed off? You know, how did you feel when you followed your intuition? Did you have a thought that maybe came to you that said, don't do this? Or did you have like maybe a feeling that came over you that said, hey, you should do this thing? It's not part of what you normally do, but let's try it. You know, what does that feel like in your body? Maybe get into it and describe, you know, the feelings that you felt. Maybe you felt cold, maybe you felt hot, maybe you felt it in your heart, maybe you felt it in your solar plexus, maybe you felt it with your whole body. What does that feeling feel like for you? And then the second journal prompt is, describe a time when you didn't follow your intuition. What did that look like? How did you feel? What were you thinking? You know, what made you not listen, or what were you not listening to? The third journal prompt is, describe a time when you did follow your intuition. Again, what did it feel like? What came of it? What happened as an end result of you following your intuition? And describe all the feelings that you had, describe all the thoughts that you had, describe where you were, what you were doing, and how you felt. Really get into how you felt. Again, these journal prompt questions are going to be in a downloadable PDF. If you sign up for my newsletter, you'll have that information in the newsletter. But if you're not part of my newsletter and you do want to be part of my newsletter and you want to get these journal prompts, you can go ahead and click on that link in the description box below. If you sign up for my newsletter, you'll get weekly one-card readings as well as special announcements that I don't normally leave on YouTube. And if you want to delve a bit deeper into your intuition, then you'll really want to join me for the Conscious Connected group breathwork session that I'll be having on August 31st. We'll be doing some conscious connected breathing, as well as some oracle readings, some journaling, and some movement to help you tap into your intuitive strengths. I hope that this resonated and was helpful for you. And if it did resonate, or if it was helpful for you, be sure to leave a comment and let me know how. Also, if you have any stories on following your intuition or what it looks like when you didn't follow your intuition, please, please, please share them in the comments below, because it is really helpful when other people can read what it looks like when you follow your intuition and what it looks like when you don't, because then that can help other people strengthen their connection with their intuition too. So that's it for today. Don't forget to join me next week if you want to dive a little bit deeper into some tarot spreads to help you strengthen your intuition. Till next time, bye.